Welcome everyone. You're listening to it, perhaps watching Sideline Stories. This is the show where we take our FPF panelists and executives, apparently, and we discuss topics relating to the league. And actually, I am happy, Rob, that you're filling in today for MoCon, because we actually have criticisms on the FPF cap system, so it's nice to be able to vent out frustrations in public. I'm joined, of course, with Rob Campana, president of FPF. I don't know why I went to puberty again. But wow. Rob Campana, president of FPF.
Who's only filling in for half the show.
We'll see.
Well, depending on like the varying length of most punctuality.
Exactly.
And since he is slow con, it could be here forever. Gian Colethris was the other voice you heard, or face you saw. GM, thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
He's joined, of course, with myself and Matt Kirouac sitting to my left. Back from Mexico, the country that won't take him back is the Eagle at Master Control. If you want to tweet the show live, you can't because the show's not live, but you can tweet us anyway and send harassments to Eagle at Eagle FPF. Chapman is in the back room, and of course he can be found at Thank God Chickens on Special. Ladies and gentlemen, the world was shocked as a gorilla was put down to save a human child. Choose your allegiance with Sportira official FPF jerseys. Team Gorilla, Team Baby, either way, get your jerseys at the home of FPF, the FPF lineup of podcasts.
I have no comments.
So, I want to get into some quick headlines before we get into the show. So first of all, Div C is featured as the game of the week. This episode is going to be aired pretty much as the voting ends. We have it's the first time we have second game of the week so far this season. Gentlemen, who do you think will win the game of the week vote?
I voted for Stockton Slap because I feel like it's one of the more entertaining games on the docket and one I want to see more. It's not just the usual suspects that we see in the game of the weeks. So that's definitely my vote.
I didn't see it.
Okay.
There's still time.
There's still time to vote.
Look now.
But there won't be time to vote when this video is posted. So I apologize to everyone. The complete spring season playoff schedule is now accessible on the website. You can go to where you have the schedule. You go from regular season. You can toggle that to the playoffs. It's right at the top of the division schedule page. So for those of you wondering when games are, when they will be, that's a great time, great place to check it out. Start planning for the end of the season. Unless, of course, you play for Darksiders, because it doesn't look like you're going there.
Don't buy Oshiaga tickets for the Sunday, basically.
Essentially. Yeah. And try and plan vacations around it. Argue with girlfriends once you get back. There's also an email that went out to team captains regarding jerseys and numbers, so please take a note of that. Teams that not yet have their jerseys, they can get so at Sportira. Please make sure you have the numbers, and we'll get into why this is important later in the show as well. Finally, Super Mario Bros. Turns out playing that game can be as hard as solving complex math problems as per MIT.
So essentially, I'm a genius because I beat the game?
Essentially. Matt, you're the smartest person at this table because I could not beat it despite my efforts.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense. So one of the things I want to talk about, guys, was some of the teams so far who have disappointed us and some have surprised us with their play. So some teams have been unexpectedly struggling, where some teams have risen. So I want to, first of all, talk about how ridiculous is it that we have expectations for teams coming into the season, given how often these rosters change and how many unknown teams come in each season?
I think it's really cool, to be honest. Like, it adds that depth to our league, that familiarity. Like, the way we say that, the way we keep the stats, the articles, has that pro feel to it. I think that just kind of adds on to that, is that we have these sort of franchises or the usual guys who pair up together and we see them season after season. So I think it's really awesome that we have these expectations, because it's not just a revolving door of teams. It's the same players coming in, and I'm sure they enjoy being talked about the same way we enjoy talking about them.
I think you're going to see different teams switch around more often in the lower division, not the higher divisions, where for the most part the same core of guys are together with a couple additions here and there in, say, A, B, 1, 2, whatever.
And the looking at this, guys, do you think there should be some sort of dedication to franchises that keep returning to FPF, like something on the FPF page where you can let's say visit the D-Boys franchise to see the past records, past stats, and so on and so forth?
Absolutely. I mean, it would be
team pictures, collection.
It would be a good idea if you had teams that have been, say, around the same core guys for 5, 6, 7 odd seasons. You can give them a franchise page or whatever. That'd be.
I think there's some sort of reward essentially for the captain that usually gets stiff for money.
It's definitely something that's being discussed as well. I know in the behind the scenes. I work with Eagle now, so I get to hear about everything he's thinking about behind the scenes. This is definitely one of them, about just having like a franchise tag and assigning like teams a captain. I'm really excited about it. I don't know how many other people are on board, but it's definitely an idea I'd like to see fleshed out in the next few seasons.
As usual, GM, this wasn't my idea. I just took it from Eagle and said it louder. So therefore, obviously, this is something that's in the works as well. Hopefully, something we'll see sooner than later. Guys, so what are some of the teams that caught your eye in terms of surging or failing despite expectations? So Matt, Div B, let's start there. Stop that.
I'm going to start it off with you, buddy.
Yeah.
Darksiders 0-3. That's
been a
kind
weird
of
season.
surprising. Kind of surprising. Not really, because you're on the team, but I'm just joking. But seriously, Darksiders.
It's a team that usually doesn't lose 3 games in a season.
That's it.
So it's surprising.
I mean, last year you guys made it to the semis, I think, in spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, surprising for me. And then on the other side, I'm going to say STL coming into Division B and being 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
They've made the right additions as well. It was really refreshing to see Guillaume De Palma back in that core of that lineup. He plays really well with them, so that's definitely a plus.
But it's a good. It's a good plus. It's not. Obviously the Gladiators are struggling too, but we talk about them every week. So
Yeah.
just leave it.
Let's get some different coverage.
I guess it's teams you're surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
GM, you play in Division D, so what are your thoughts about that division?
In Division D, so teams that I'm surprised are struggling right now. Get on deck have been without their regular quarterback, Stéphane Larosilière. So I guess that's a surprise that they're not off the same sort of start that we've wanted them to be. More money, less TDs. For the core that they have, there's really no excuse to be 0-3. So that's another team I thought that would be struggling. And to sort of round up my list, I have Temsa. Because if you name your team Temsa, yeah, and it's spelled like that, by the way. If you name your team that, you have to be able to blow teams out of the water. Otherwise, why even bother? Like, it's a disgrace to name your team that if you can't muster up a win.
Well, then it becomes ironic. I didn't say
But you don't want that.
It's a Mocon kind of team name.
MK, what do you think about Division E? Teams that have surprised you by how good they are and surprised you by how poorly they're playing.
Well, we look at the returning teams. We mentioned at PZ Week 1. Now it's Week 3. That is teams like the Tigers. Jean Guy, they got off to a slow start now, playing much better than before. The hybrid small giant squad, the Roadrunners, have kept in tune with script with what they've done so far with Justin Leonard now as a receiver, no longer quarterback for this division. But I think we'll see the separation of the top tier teams from the pack in the next couple weeks, and we'll know who are the favorites going into the second half of the year.
Is
Who's
Donkey
sucking
Kong
them
still
all?
in E?
Yes, they are.
Have they won a game?
No, they have not.
No.
Oh, come on, man. I'm
Who's
rooting
this?
for them. Gronky Kong.
They have not won yet.
One team.
We're going to talk about them
them
actually next or previous to this by the time this is posted. I'm still not used to non-live shows. But we're going to actually talk a little bit about Gronky Kong and their game this week on the
really
DV
rooting for
podcast.
them.
Yeah.
I have my teams that surprised me in positively in D, but also on the teams that Mo mentioned that surprised me in E.
Wait, no. I want Mo to say something negative about a team. Mo, who's sucking?
He's not going to.
Mo!
Yeah, Mo.
Mo! Mokan!
Darksiders are sucking right now.
Divi! Give me Divi!
That's what I'm talking about. Divi, Darksiders. They
So
put the
disappointed.
C in sucking.
So disappointed.
He's so brutal.
I know. Seriously.
Rob, get back on the show. Come on.
Hardcore.
Parkour it is. Kirawak. Divi.
There's 6 teams.
Well, are there any surprises so far?
Obvious
Is it
answer is
exact-
Rainmakers. That's all you have to say.
No, not even, because they've always been a strong team. They always come out of the gate either, they're always at the top of the pack.
Yes, but never to this level.
No,
they've
they-
never
they-
had a
they
roster
had-
this deep.
No,
They've
absolutely.
never
This
played
is the
this well
strongest.
together.
This is a Mocha Online, but this is the strongest roster I've ever seen them have.
Cool, and it's necessary.
And
So can you actually say something with your commentary, or you're just going to be Mokan?
Oh, okay. A team I'm surprised in. Let's see. Realistically, Top Guns have played the 3 top teams, or they're going to have played the 3 top teams in the division, and they come out with a win over us. That's not surprising. They've kept it close with Finest and
So we're not getting anything out of you. All right, cool. GM Dipsy.
Teams that have struggled are surprisingly good.
Either, but both.
Teams that are struggling right now, Warhawks. I feel
They
like
look
Fred
awful.
Millette. Yeah,
Oh.
Fred Millette does really well in the lower divisions. The second he takes that step up, he gets massacred every time. And considering the amount of tackle experience on that team, I guess I'm still like optimistic for them and get let down every time. No big deal for a team that's familiar. Adding Jordan McLaren as well, they should definitely be better than 1-1-1. I know that a couple points swinging the other way put them either at 2-1 or 3-0, but they're definitely a strong team.
And the fact that Jordan's out.
Yep, that's also fair.
Yeah.
And Brunch Buddies.
Yeah.
Considering
I don't
how
like
much
this
you
show, by the way.
advertised, like the fact that you lowered Simo's interception count and just the sort of way to pull.
I was
people
wrong with
onto
Simo.
that. Yeah.
Although I used it to recruit a very good team that is now handicapped by the fact that we have Simo as
You're on the
quarterback.
shit end of the stick, aren't you?
Seriously, it's a rough season for me.
Pease lives a rough life because he has to deal with Simo.
It's true. It's true.
Dajne.
It's a wrong person to be in bed with, says any woman he slept with.
Teams that have surprised me and see it in a positive. Honey Badgers, I said that this team is loaded, but the egos and the tempers may impact them negatively. They've been great so far. They have a great plus-minus. No name with the quarterback switch, having Michael Roy in for their former quarterback, Beausoleil.
Oh, Bosla, yes.
Yeah.
And Grizzly as well, who
Yeah,
played quarterback
absolutely.
for them. Yeah.
And that allows them to really take advantage of Grizzly as a receiver now. And former Tomahawk, for a team that were kind of average to above average in Division 5A, they've been great in C so far.
That's fair. Mo, when you see teams that are struggling this way, what is it to get over the hump? What often is the problem?
Oh, look at that all black air. All black
Swear?
everything. No. All black everything has had a slow start to the year. They're 1-2.
Okay.
I
Speaking more
think-
generically though, like when teams
But
have
I think
issues
in general,
early on.
like it's the blueprint, right? We've seen teams get off to slow starts in the past, but always put on. Look at Jager Bombs. They're the classic example of a lower division team that will start off 0-2, 1-3, 1-4, and then bam, it just turns on for them. They win 4-5 in a row, get in the playoffs, make deep runs like they've done the last couple of years in the FPF playoff races in winter and spring seasons. It's a matter of being focused on what you have to do because, guys, we all know when you come into this league, we always play the man-to-man, deep ball philosophy. But then gradually you understand, like, I have to be a little bit more focused on playing zones, shorter passes to work the deep ball, vice versa. And I think we'll see that happen in the spring season for these teams to carry this over for winter 2017.
Guys, for the teams that are successful so far, do you see any of them sort of just falling off, just getting off to a hot start, but just being a product of the schedule early on?
I mean, we definitely have that. One of the examples of a team that caught my eye that are undefeated right now, they're 3-0, but they sort of have a weak schedule. And they were in Division 5B last winter, Justice League. Like, I love that core. They're a great group of guys. But if you asked me preseason, do you think Justice League will be 3-0 after 3 weeks, I would have said absolutely not. And they are. It's partly due to their schedule, and good for them for capitalizing on that. But that's a team that I think might fall off in the second half.
That's fair. So, given what we mentioned earlier about FPF getting strict with numbers and jerseys and so on and so forth, what's the need to institute this rule? I'll leave this to you, Mo, since you scorekeep and
I was going to say,
and have the
because
struggle.
can't scorekeep properly because you can't see numbers.
It's a pain in the ass, though, to be
I'm
honest.
sure it is. I'm
It's-
sure it is.
I think it's annoyance for scorekeepers in general because obviously when you come with a score sheet, unlike some people here, Matt Kerouac, it makes things tougher. If I know a team, I'll know what number they are, so on and so forth. But if you're a new team that comes with markered T-shirts or half a T-shirt that's not even a real T-shirt that looks like a white beard that Eagle wears at night, it doesn't really help. And I think it's very important that teams to spend the extra $5 and put $2 on a number, whatever it is, and get yourself a proper shirt. So at the end of the day, we're able to get your numbers for your stats for defense and offense properly set for you to have the all-stars that you want to become in August or next April.
Should FPF include a jersey cost as part of the FPF registration?
I think so.
Our proud sponsor, Sportira, and they've done marvelous, right?
Because let's say like their base jerseys, what, $15, $16?
But look at Matt Kerouac's uniforms,
Right.
right? They've been a proud sponsor. Their teams that Matt's been a part of, and very easy to read the numbers. I agree. There should be some sort of jersey implementation.
At
I'm
the end of
not
the day-
talking about high-end sublimated kits either.
No,
Just
no,
like
no.
Let's say you go
normal
base.
green jerseys, normal white jerseys,
Yeah.
blue jerseys, whatever.
If you go base and it costs each player an extra $20, you add that to your
Team total.
you
Yeah.
won't even notice it. So I think it would be a fantastic
It's
idea.
$2 a week.
It's hard, like when you have teams that sort of add players mid-season or add these subs. So, but from a logistics point of view, like, it's a great idea. I definitely play in leagues that like I play in Kirkland Touch Football, and they have jerseys that are provided to you by the league, and then you give them back. I get that that's feasible and a great idea. It's just hard to implement when we have like 140 teams in the league.
Fair.
So it's just the logistics of it.
In fairness, though, in the winter season, yes, there's 140 teams, but the bulk of these teams have uniforms that actually look like uniforms, not like a melange of dark blue, light blue, and somewhat blue to wear. Yeah, exactly.
And I think the heat also plays a little bit of a factor. Not much, but just like no one wants to be in like big, heavy jerseys or T-shirts that don't really breathe.
Our clockwork jerseys are brutal. I don't know if you.
Yeah.
They look
I have
heavy.
those reversible jerseys, the reversible hoop kit. Like they are great in the winter. They're great because you'll never have to wear pennies ever. You have that reversible.
Exactly,
but the trade-off is that
so glad
you're
it
basically
gets
wearing
heavy.
a plastic bag that just like
Yeah,
holds heat.
I'm so glad we don't have clockwork in the spring because I would at Brossard you would just literally pass out.
So, guys, one thing, and President Campana left, unfortunately, so we were unable to event with him present. But I want to talk about something that's on our minds constantly, and some things that just have come up through the season so far. Looking at the FPF cap system, it's been interesting where some team builders have been successful and built very strong teams. Other teams that were successful in the past now having to play in level competition have struggled. So I want to talk about, despite the fact that it's generally worked, right? Like we have more competitive games, more competitive playoffs and finals than we ever have. The quarterback cap especially has helped legitimize the strength in divisions and so on and so forth. But there are flaws with the cap system, some of which, for some reason, my calculator got activated on my iPad. For some of which, one of the things, for example, is the cap rarely adjusts for regression or age. We remember, for example, player X was awesome that one year that he had 12 touchdowns. But then for the next 3 or 4 seasons, if he only catches 4 or 5 touchdowns, we still have that memory of that guy who caught 12 touchdowns. And so it doesn't seem to get adjusted. Also, guys get older. They're not as good. It happens. It's happening to me right now.
Obviously, there's going to be flaws in a system like this. And, I mean, just don't play as good if you want your...
Really?
Oh, what do you want me to tell you? What's your rating, please?
Low. It's low. It's like a 68.
Yeah. But you're getting older, too.
I am.
Can it get any lower?
Barely.
No, obviously there's going to be flaws with it, but that's not something that's going to affect the game too much with regression or with age. It's not something where it's going to fluctuate.
I'll bring up a team, and it's a team I played against this week. The Longhorns. We're a team, middle tier talent for FPF in general. And G. Bowman commented to the GM saying, I don't understand how I'm ranked higher than a lot of these young players or whatever that are clearly better than
Which
me.
is a totally fair assumption.
Which is
a totally
absolutely
fair statement.
And just you know what I mean? Like the league is also more competitive than it's ever been. Yep. It's harder than it's ever been. And if you played long ago, there seems to be like a bias against you versus someone new and coming through.
I guess like an example of that would be like a team like the Tyrants, where they were really good and they were a great cohesive unit, but the divisions and ultimately the league sort of evolved and surpassed them.
Yeah.
Whereas even as they dropped down and they were competitors in Div 5, like the new teams that are coming in just adapt very quickly to the new style game, and it's difficult.
And we see this too. Also, teams getting stuck in lower divisions. There are teams that come back to Division 6. Season in, season out, Division E as well. And then there's this new team of guys who are unknown and they're not joining the league to dodge a division necessarily, but they just don't know what the different levels of competition are, and they just might have a bunch of athletes and therefore are a much stronger team.
But to argue that, to counter our point though, Pease, those power teams, that so-called Div 6 power team, they don't make it to the final sometimes.
Yeah, that's very
Very
true.
often they don't.
Yeah,
But
and there's the thing I find interesting is a lot of times quarterbacks come in from tackle, and then they're unknown, so they're rated 60, 65, and they're CJIP guys or low-level CIS backups or whatever. And the thing is that there's still an adjustment period to FPF. And as good as we see them do during the regular season, because they'll pick on the poorest teams, once it gets to the playoffs, the teams in the playoffs are still good for that division.
There's a prime example of that. What was it, 2 springs ago? He's the offensive coordinator for...
AMJ Campbell, I know
Yeah,
what you're
AMJ
talking about.
Campbell.
Benoit Gros.
Ben Gru,
Ben,
yeah.
Back in the day, he was
He was
phenomenal.
the quarterback for Laval.
exactly. And then he came into our
World.
division, in our world, basically. We stomped him, I think,
Yeah, you put up 9 touchdowns or something on them.
72 to 20-something.
I actually saw him, and he mentioned that game, and without mentioning Marco Mastiocci's name, he goes, "I got the sleeves. He's really good." I go, "He's never played football in his life."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look
So
what he's
there
done.
you go. Exactly. A guy like Marco who's never played.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about Marco.
But essentially, that's the thing. So I think at some point there is a level of overreaction. So I remember Alex Rivet played in Division 5 this season. He's playing CJ ball, I forget where. And Justin Blanchard messages me, "Yo, I found his name after a 5-second Google search. It's not fair. He's going to wreck the league." And look who didn't win championship. And so I think there is a bit of leveling off as well. But it does suck for these lower tier teams that struggle to get a win, who will get wrecked by 40 points to a team who's much stronger or has a piece that's much stronger than they are. Is there anything we can do about these incoming like unranked studs or whatnot?
No.
We only have so much manpower. There's only 10 weeks in the season. Like, there's only so much we can do. I feel like the way it used to be, the way the league used to be structured, when you could only have 1 or 2 upper division players, it was all about finding those key upper division players. And then we brought in the cap, and it started being about finding players who fit under your cap limit that were perfect. And now it seems to be that the sort of meta is going out and finding players who either don't have football experience or anyone who doesn't have a rating, and you bring them in and you take a gamble on them. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. And you use their base rating as a gamble to see if they're going to be good or not.
That's
so
why
I think that's the new.
there should be a GM award
Well,
at this point with the cap.
Yeah.
this is what
Because
To put it into a totally fair example, a player that we had never seen before who has absolutely exploded onto the scene now, like Kwesi Gordon-Mall,
Yeah.
played with us in Div 6. Pease could barely get him the ball, but we saw
when I
right
did, it was
from,
magic.
right from the get-go that Kwesi was talented and that he was
or
going
on
to
the
be
same
big in
team,
that.
Phil Angers, same
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
Caribbean recruit, like it's.
Khalil Kerr.
Khalil Kerr,
Yeah,
yeah.
Khalil Kerr
Well,
in, on formerly teamless.
But that said, like I find you can't really put in a system that prevents that either, because it's not fair to a guy you don't recognize. So, like, let's say someone does recognize Khalil because he's the starter of Vanny, but then Kwesi goes unnoticed. So Khalil comes in with an 80, but then Kwesi can dominate in Division
Yeah.
6. So there's no necessarily fair way. You just hope that the best talent wants to be at a higher level of
And
competition.
the flip side of that coin, you asked me a team that that have struggled and that I was disappointed in. I mentioned the Warhawks, and that's a team that's like mostly tackle, CIS, CJIP guys. So that's a perfect counterpoint to the argument.
But coming from tackle to flag is two different.
Yeah, so that's why
two
it's
different
hard to assign
roles.
people who play in tackle a rating before they've even stepped foot on our field.
This is what now the second full year of the cap system,
Yeah.
right? The reality is the cap will not be really felt until year 4 when you get a bigger sample size to work with to say we know what we're doing with and we can be able to avoid those guys that use the loopholes to their advantage to say we're going to get this guy in at 60.
Well, the loopholes
even
will
play
always
for Vandy.
exist.
They will, but they'll get smaller and smaller year
exactly,
by year.
the pool gets smaller.
Who's beef jerky's
I
out
can't
there?
hear him.
That's fine.
The split 4A, 4B.
Yeah, well, splitting the divisions helped a lot too. In this
there's just
winter
so many
season
teams, though.
with that many. Well, that's the thing is nobody like it's tough to compete for championship in a division of 50 teams. Like you start week 1 feeling like, maybe we don't have a chance.
Yeah, if you're not 7-3 or better, you're automatically out
It
of the
needs to
running.
be like basketball where they have like 4 months of playoffs.
Yeah.
That's what they have to do
But
essentially.
It kind of would feel that way. Absolutely. One last thing, Matt. What do you think about the cap in Division A, Division 1?
I understand it. I know that from what I could see that he's basing it basically on Montreal's finest D-boys, even Rainmakers, and leaving it saying you can't add any more guys to make your team even better than it already is.
Unless
I think the Rainmakers benefited from the cap.
but unless that's it. Rainmakers look more competitive now
Yeah,
than they
okay,
had in the
added
double
Take,
more
season.
take
Arsenal.
Rainmakers out of it because I don't think they were based on it.
It was
I think
finest
they
though.
were
Finest
finest
D-boys.
and D-boys.
Yeah.
That we were. I think we were 556 when the cap was 560 with the team that we had there.
Yes.
So I know Rob did it so that we couldn't add anybody, but we could
Would
still
be
put
But
fine
then
with
again,
the
you can
pieces you
do
have.
you can do what GM is saying is if you guys know a guy who's a stud.
what we do.
In
That's
a-
what we're doing now.
But
That's
it
a
worked,
new
though.
GM of the
yeah,
GM
but we
approach.
also we're only doing it now because we've lost guys. So
yeah.
But it worked in the winter season this
Yeah,
past
exactly.
year. It was
That-
evident.
We've
you
had
know?
one of the most, if not the most successful Division 1 seasons we've had ever. And I think that as much as I understand, like, you feel for teams like the Finest who are looking to add Pat Jerome that season, but we've seen a division with the most parity we've had ever. And that's the truth.
they add Jerome, they add Chenard this year, but for what reason? Because Aked Moore is not there, and I think it's no offense to Jerome or Chenard that Aked brings more to Finest than both of them together. That's just my opinion. So
I just think they
they
need more
lost it.
bodies at that point for the
Yeah.
finest. Finest were,
I
were,
guess it
were
was more
thin,
bodies. They
you know?
want. They always wanted Jerome on the team, and now they have Chenard too. But
Well, Chenard was a former member of that team.
yeah,
Former member.
Eagle,
Jean
get a
Bonnier.
picture up of James Nowakowski as we set up the Looks Like game. Every week we discuss, do we take a player from FPF at semi-random based on who I just
Whether
happen to
we
think
know
of.
or not that you can take the abuse.
Yeah, whether or not we think you have a sense of humor, aka not Brad Evans, and then we look at whether, and then we discuss what it is you look like, whether it's a movie archetype or just a random collection of thoughts. It's just a way to have fun with some of the people in the league and maybe bring us all closer together. So this week it's James Nowakowski, GM, your teammate.
Yeah, my
and
teammate.
Flossie
quarterback.
Bronson's. So I'm going to start it off with James Nowakowski. Looks like a guy who's weirdly obsessed with kittens.
he wrote that on Facebook. So
Yeah.
think of a
That
new
was
one.
the first one. That was the introduction.
Okay.
That's the
So
introduction.
I have kind of a movie archetype because you mentioned that and I figured it sounds perfect.
My next one
So-
is a movie archetype as well.
So in a film, a drama or an action film where the main character gets sent to prison, his cellmate, the guy who looks after him and is like super protective but is there for bad reasons and is that sort of like grimy but mentor character, that's James Nowakowski.
See, it's funny you say that because I have both a movie archetype and a prison one. The prison one is James Nowakowski looks like the hardened criminal who extends his own sentence while helping the main character escape
Yes!
after having a
We did not
moral
discuss
awakening.
this, by the
we
way.
did not discuss this at all. So, James, you really do look like that.
He would look like a character in. He would play in Lost 2, the role of Tom Hanks.
Lost? Wait, Tom Hanks wasn't in Lost.
He would play the role.
I think you've been Castaway.
oh, whatever it's called.
Lost
Yeah,
too?
Castaway.
Yeah,
What
that's
the
good.
movie's called.
So,
Mine's a little
Lost
bit
Castaway.
more.
James, you look like Tom Hanks in Lost too.
Castaway. too.
Mine's a little bit more of real life. People don't know I actually have two last names. One of them is Novak,
Really?
which is a descendant of Nowakowski. And to be honest with you, he kind of looks like my dad.
Maybe
So
he is
maybe
your
your
dad.
dad.
No, maybe it's like
Brother?
my dad's
You
dad.
should ask your mom about him. James Nowakowski also looks like an 80s action
Really
film
stretches that
villain.
line, eh?
James Nowakowski looks like an 80s action film villain. You find yourself continuously asking throughout the film, didn't he play that guy in that movie?
Hans in the Die Hard 1.
Hans Gruber, exactly.
Yeah.
That's
the late,
exactly what I
the
was
late
thinking of.
Hans
Alan
Gruber,
Rickman.
unfortunately, passed away.
Well, I mean, it's a great character. Final thoughts, gentlemen.
This was fun.
This was fun.
What's the plan?
Sans Mo.
it was better before Mo got here.
With
Mo, final thoughts before we start our next show. we have another half hour to deal with me.
Yes. No, you guys covered it all pretty much. I mean, from head to toe. and
Eagle needs a mic though. I think.
I agree.
It'll be fascinating to see how this plays out the next year or two with the cap. How much it improves over the course of the next 12 to 18 months.
GM, most interesting game of the week this week.
No, because Rainmakers are playing the Finest next week, and that'll be the most interesting game.
Shut up.
If-
I don't know.
Cool.
I guess I voted
Great.
for Stockton Slap for a reason, so I'll say that.
All right. I second it. So thank you, Mo. Thank you, Rob, for filling in for Mo before you got here. Thank you, GM. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Eagle.
Thank you,
and
Pete.
Chapman. But most of all, thank you all for letting me be myself.